welcome to the show. Thanks for
Okay,
coming on. If you just want to start out by introducing yourself and giving like a little background, I think that'd be great.
for sure. Yeah. So my name is Ashten Garrett. I'm living in Cleveland, Ohio right now. I serve as the Senior Culinary Arts Manager at Marriott International. So like that entails anything on a management side. So I've been cooking since I'm sorry, cooking professionally since I was 14, but I've always had a pair of tongs in my hand and a wooden spoon in my other hand since I was 3 years old. So I kind of just always started since I was a child and always stuck with it. And 20 years later, I'm the product of that creation, and I've just always been cooking. So that's kind of my summary of a backstory.
Nice, awesome. And so I guess mentioned tongs in your hand. So I guess what was that first time you were really interested in food?
Ray, to be honest with you, man, my first beginning experience was with a easy bake oven when I
Okay,
was, like I said, when I was 3 years old. So my parents surprised me on Christmas and bought me an easy bake oven, and I remember vividly actually just playing with it hours on end, making brownies and pastries and different assortments of cookies, and really just becoming encapsulated with the creation, side.
yeah,
So that's kind of leading into the next talking point, if you will. I wanted to start into baking. I love baking and pastry. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And actually, I was going to go down to school, Johnson and Wales University, for baking and pastry.
okay,
It wasn't until in my high school had a vocational program, a
yeah,
pre-college vocational program, and it was culinary, food based, food and management based. And I got into that, and it completely changed my perspective for food. And I not only did I grow a newfound appreciation for baking and pastry in terms of patience,
mm-hmm.
and the attention to detail. I also exposed myself to the culinary side and the savory side, right? And just really the excitement of working with seasonings and how to do different techniques. So that kind of led into me becoming, a savory chef, if you will. But still, my heart is always into baking and pastry, those sweets. So
The easy bake oven was definitely a childhood classic. So
easy bake oven. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. It definitely was. Yeah. I hope it's still in circulation today. You don't really see it a lot, but I hope it is.
I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. There's so many new trends now with like TikTok and all that. So I feel like
Exactly.
I feel like back then it was like easy bake oven was like an introduction into cooking, and now you have social media, and you don't really like you can just go ahead and make these simple recipes off of that. So um,
Exactly.
it's definitely interesting. So you know, like I said, we connected on LinkedIn. I've been following your work for some time and just kind of seeing how you've been moving. And so, what is it? How kind of walk me through. We don't have to go through every single thing in your career, but
Hmm.
more so kind of what has led you up to being a manager at Marriott, being involved with the ACF. Kind of how did you get into all that?
Certainly, man. So, my story, not much different, I should say, than any other, chef, if you will. We all had different paths. That's kind of what makes it great. Like I said, if we're talking about just early career, went down to Johnson Wales University, North Miami, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Studied, culinary arts and hospitality management. But prior to that, I was in high school, right, and I was with the NRAEF, the DECA, Pro Starts, things like that. That exposure
Yeah.
and this kind of rate, from a very young age, that I think that exposure is crucial, and it's something that I'm near and dear, excuse me, that's near and dear to my heart is exposing and bringing along the younger generation and the people after me, right?
Yeah.
And exposing them to the ACF, the DECA, the Pro Start, things like that, because they were so integral to my development and they still are to this day. So before that, right? Like I said, getting into those programs was essential. Getting into those organizations, not just from an educational standpoint, but from a networking standpoint. I'm sure that you can attest that
Mm-hmm.
the culinary industry, the hospitality industry in general, is such like a brotherhood and sisterhood. A lot of people know a lot of people, so all it really takes is one referral or a networking, convention or not even that, just connection, if you will, and you're on your way. So the cooking is universal.
Yeah.
If you peel an onion in Washington, you're gonna peel the same onion in Spain, and you're gonna peel the same onion in Australia. Now the technique might be different, but the overall methodology is still the same. So like learning that early on was very integral. But more to your question, like I said, went down to Johnson Wales University, North Miami, Florida, graduated after 2 years. Then I took a study abroad to Italy in Paris, France. Did that for about 3 to 4 months. Absolutely great experience. Loved everything about it.
Let's
That
talk
was
about that real quick. Love
for
to
sure.
hear
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
yeah.
study abroad because I know you mentioned before we got on the call you're heading back out to Italy in a little bit. What was it like
Exactly.
for you to go and see, another like, I've never gotten to leave the States.
Okay.
Hopefully, within the next few years, we'll be able to. So what was it
Absolutely.
like for you to kind of leave and go see another food culture in their country and kind of be an experience where it was, like, probably totally different than what you've known?
You just hit it right on the head, man. Like just the totally different aspect, right?
Mhm.
And understanding and knowing are two different things. Because you can know someone's culture, like reading a book or watching a movie, but actually understanding it and being involved in their culture on an everyday basis, and understanding, that you have to be accustomed to their ways, and you have to know, you have to understand their ways. So like for doing things like so tipping
Mhm.
is without a doubt something that you don't do,
Hmm.
over there, right? Well,
Okay.
in the US, it's kind of, a no-brainer, if you will. But tipping, because I don't think they necessarily, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't think they take it as disrespect, but it's to the point, like almost to that degree.
Yeah.
So learning things like that, right? And just being in, like I said, encapsulated in that energy, eating fresh pasta every day, things like that, and just not taking it for granted. I think there's often a misconception from a cultural standpoint that we're so because food is readily accessible here in America in any given season,
Yeah.
and that's something that I learned without question, that you have to eat in season over there. You have to, and they take it as a sign of appreciation to the ingredients that you do, and also creativity to the chef.
Mhm.
It shows the chef's creativity, imagination, innovation. To cook with things that are within his or her area, and to use it, to exploit the ingredients to the best of their ability. So Italy was just a tremendous experience. Like I said, flying over there, the people that I was with, the study abroad team, the hospitality was just tremendous, and being able to go into so many different cities and learn so much. Rome, how it was literally built, and go and see the Colosseum, and it hits you, right? You hit a corner on the street and you turn around and it's right there.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's the Coliseum. And the only time I've ever seen that, like I said, has been in movies or in books. So, different experiences like that. And I've actually been blessed and fortunate to be in Italy 3 times,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
And
Nice.
like I said, I'm going back for my fourth time. So it's just every single trip, every single experience, you learn something new, you learn something different. Like I said, you meet up with different people, and I think that's the great ability of our industry that allows you, because I often say this, that food knows no discrimination. It knows no gender, it knows no race, ethnicity, whatever. It truly knows to be enjoyed, and it doesn't matter, who's cooking it. It could be a 3-year-old, a 30-year-old, an 80-year-old. As long as those ingredients and flavors, and you do it with love, and there's a passion and a purpose behind it. And I think that's what the driving emphasis, especially for our generation, is trying to get to. So Italy was a tremendous experience, a big culture booster for me, and as you can see, going back multiple times, it has just been amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you just said about food and kind of being that great connector that, wherever you go, has that ability to be something that you can all like, yeah, you can connect with someone through even though they might be a total stranger.
Exactly.
Um, what so like obviously, and then you talked about like seasonal cooking, seasonality. When you came back after those trips, what was it like to come back and kind of see how we eat as a country or kind of how we eat as a culture, as a society? Were you disappointed? Were you like, all right, no, like I get both sides, or kind of what was your opinion or attitude when you came back?
It was a good question. um I wasn't saying I wouldn't say necessarily disappointed, to be honest with you. America has their own structure in terms of how they do agriculture and how they do food, and how that correlates with the whole restaurant system, if you will, because we're expansive.
Yeah,
We have, and capitalism and marketing kind of run this country in a sense. So a lot of it um, deals with moving food and understanding the value of food, whether you grow it or it's international, domestic, whatever the case may be.
yep,
Like I said, over there, Ray, if the farm or the producers or the market isn't within, they use kilometers, but if, just from miles perspective, if it isn't within probably 5 to 10 miles, they're not going to go very far to go get it, or they're not going to have somebody to come get it. You eat what you know. And in the regions, I was in Tuscany for the latter part of the study abroad, for the majority of the study abroad, I should say, for a couple months, and I don't think that there was really it's a heavy heavily influenced on bread and potatoes. That's
Yeah.
what's grown there, in the northern region of Italy. In the southern regions, then you have your pastas, more tomato based and things like that.
Yep.
So, learning that and differentiating, okay, like, wow, this is difference in regions. I think with the US, we're so expansive and there's so many different tiers in terms of agriculture and different terms of tiers in terms of how food is. I guess I wasn't disappointed. This has kind of been the structure for a while. I think it needs to be reconstructed. I think there's great opportunity for that,
Mhm.
and especially in terms of a nutritional balance and also equity in different communities. Those that have a high part of disparity in terms of food deserts and not readily accessible, great foods, if you will, fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
I think there's a great opportunity to capitalize on that. But on the back end, everybody's got to eat. Not too many people know how to cook, and just from that was another perspective I learned too. In growing in Europe, a lot of people know how to cook.
Yeah.
Even if it's the basic level. And they know how to cook with the ingredients that they have on hand, and that's really a generational thing that's taught down and continue to, whether it's from an ethnic cooking or cultural standpoint. So I think and learning that helped me a lot too.
Awesome. You did the study abroad. I didn't mean to interrupt your story.
No, you're
You
good,
come
man.
back from the
Yeah.
study abroad. What happens after that?
So I come back from the study abroad and started my job. Like I said, I started with Marriott. I was in the Voyager program, which is like the manager and
Mhm.
training program.
And what
And I
year
did
was
that.
this around?
This is about 2018, 2019, I should
Right.
say.
Nice.
Yes, right. Yeah, early. I'm sorry. I started my Voyager program early 2019 in January
Nice.
after I came back, and it's just been a great experience. A lot of good learning, a lot of great experiences. Things that I didn't think that I would learn that I'm learning now. Marriott's a tremendous corporation, right? And a very expansive number one travel tourism company in the world, and they're only growing. So
Mhm.
for me, that was imperative. Coming out of college, not necessarily on the money side, because Ray, like I'm entry level still. So
Yeah.
money's not the main priority. But on the back end, it was about expanding and growth and understanding and how I could better myself as a young man and as a young chef. So that was one of the key factors in deciding, okay, which career path do I want to go into? And just a
Yep.
quick tidbit on that: the reason I actually went down to Miami, Florida for school was because I wanted to be on cruise ships. I wanted to be a cruise chef, and I learned very quickly that from a professor. He kind of sat me down and we had a quick discussion. And he actually we used to work on a cruise ship, and he was just telling me different experiences, all great, all very positive. But he said, Ashton, let's try different things before you go that route, if that's okay.
Mhm.
And because I had a very singular mindset when it came to that. Like I said, man, I'm going to graduate from school, cruise ships right after. That's it. That's my career. I will stay on the boat, travel, expand my palate, and that's it. So he kind of took my singular mindset, one dimensional mindset, I should say, and expanded it. And said, Ashton, there's an endless possibilities in this career. You don't have to stay in cooking. You really don't. There's
Mhm.
nutrition, there's dietetics, there's sommeliers, there's wine studies, tea studies, things like that. So, but to answer your question again, I know I'm rambling. Um, Came back to the Voyager program for a year, and then got promoted into my current position, like I said, the Senior Culinary Arts Manager. So I've been with the
Congrats.
company for three. Thank you, sir. I've been with the company for 3 years now, and it's like I said, just been a whirlwind. Been a great experience. But throughout those my tenure here, I've done different things like cooking at the James Beard House, doing Food Network, going back to Italy and competing in an international competition. So different things like that. So like the extracurricular activities, I should say, have always taken place.
Nice. No, that's cool to hear. Or a couple questions. With so I feel like we kind of had the same path in a sense upon leaving college. So I also graduated in
Mhm.
2018 or 2018,
Okay,
29. Started a management program in 2019
nice.
with a restaurant group, and I remember like when I was for the longest time in college, up until maybe my last year, I wanted to be in Michelin. I wanted to be in fine dining. I wanted to work that whole route. Did you ever want to do that first? Was that ever like for me?
That's still that's
That's
still a heavy consideration.
heavy
Absolutely, that's actually
consideration.
something I want to get into. Yeah, Michelin. I
Okay.
shouldn't say the end goal because you can always still evolve and get better, but
Mhm.
that's definitely something throughout my career path that I want to get into on a very important and priority basis.
What made you go though more so like when I think of the Voyager program, much like kind of another management program, you're looking
Hmm.
at management as a whole. You're getting that experience, and for me, that was like the biggest thing. I wanted to manage. I wanted to learn food costs. I wanted to learn how to schedule, and I was able to do that and manage a kitchen.
Right.
until up until COVID hit. Um,
Sure.
what made you decide to go? Because most people, when they want to go that path, especially the path of fine dining, you'd think you'd go work under someone who's very skillful, very obviously like a Michelin star restaurant. But for you,
Sure.
you chose kind of a path that was more business minded, where you're able to get more experience, maybe on food costs or running a kitchen or ordering or having relationships with vendors and producers. And what made you decide to go that way instead of maybe a more traditional path? Because for me, obviously I did the same route with management, and I
Certainly.
learned a lot, and it's definitely helped me so far. What made you decide to go that way?
But to be honest with you, man, the end goal for me, I shouldn't say end goal, like I said, as the overall consensus that I would like to get into is more entrepreneurial. So
Okay.
learning how to do that, cooking is universal, like I said, right?
Yeah.
And learning how to cook is something that's near and dear to almost everybody. So the actual cooking side and being creative and learning the fundamentals is something that you can do over a progression of time. And you can also do this with business. But instead of an apprenticeship, which you alluded to, working under somebody, I chose the management side and the business side to learn it, right?
Hmm.
To be comfortable, I'm sorry, to be uncomfortable, to be comfortable later, right? So when I am managing a chain of restaurant or my own restaurant or whatever the case may be, I've been through this. But it might have been a different scenario, might have been a different establishment, but at least I learned it and I know how to govern it and I know how to work it through. So that was integral for me, learning the business side, developing business acumen. Because like I said, I went to majority of my training has always been culinary focused,
Okay.
which I think it definitely should be. But on the back end, there has to be some sort of a balance, especially if you want to own your own operation. And the greatest way to do that is through experience. For me, in my personal opinion. So I throwing around ideas. Do I want to go to masters in business school? My school had an MBA program where I could have done that. I said, let's just go out there. Let me use my degree to work for me. And through that evolution, my Voyager program turned into an actual degree in itself.
Hmm.
Learning different things like that, connections, business acumen, like you said, how to learn financials, food costs, how to contact purveyors, speak with them, and develop meetings, things like that. Things that aren't really heavily enforced from a culinary perspective because it's so food related.
Yeah.
But on the back end, that you need to know. If you don't know these things, your business isn't running. In my personal opinion, isn't going to run very efficiently. And nobody gets into the business without wanting to run efficiently, whether it's from a food truck perspective, private chef, or even a large corporation. So that was for me, right? Just learning the business side because the overall goal is to own and operate.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have I think a lot of people in food, especially people that are younger, like when I was in college, for example, around that age, 18, 19, we get very like captured by like the actual cooking part of things.
Right.
And we don't like when I started my management and training position, I was able to do it in New York City. I was training in Manhattan, um,
Wonderful.
which is the restaurant I mean it's still there. It does well in Manhattan.
For sure.
it's a busy busy city, and
Absolutely.
being seeing my mentor at the time being able to order and schedule and deal with all the crazy, like every day it's something, especially in New York, it's always something, whether it's a vendor or someone calls out. And like that's like cooking, yes, you need to have skills. And like you see someone like Grant Achatz and the work he does, like you need, like if you really want to be at that 3 Michelin star level, you have to have that dedication. But that's
Absolutely.
like not the only thing. And a lot of the times when you're managing operation, that's like maybe 30% at that point
Right.
of what you're doing. 20%, you need to know how to manage people, how to have good communication, how to treat people fairly, how to set expectations, how to set guidelines, how to write prep lists for every station.
Right.
Bigger picture, like you said, food costs, liquor costs,
For
um,
sure.
all that stuff. How to manage in situations where things don't go right, because when you're managing a restaurant, every day there's something that's not going to go right. It's like
Absolutely.
that should be a part of your game plan. So, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of times when people are coming up through food, and I want to say coming up as if I'm older, I'm only 24, but I just, from my experience, I didn't realize how important all those other things were, and that's why I'm grateful I chose that route, as I'm sure you are, because that's a big, that's such a big skill set that you don't get if you're just working on the line and
Certainly.
you want to own your own business or manage a business.
Right. And I think that's to your point. That's something that, especially in our generation, right? That the young generation, still the young chefs rising up. We get distracted in because there's such temptation at a very like own.
Hmm.
Oh, start your. And we're in this startup kind of world now, right?
Yeah.
Where there's so many different startups popping up, and that because of the advent of technology, especially social media. So whether it's Instagram, leveraging your business there, or Facebook leveraging your business, whatever the case may be, LinkedIn
Hmm.
doing even like a podcast like this, whatever the case may be, it's always own. And through that, majority of the times those startups really happen because of an experience or because of an event. So a lot of like my personal, colleagues, they're starting their own, ghost kitchens or, private dining, whatever, in part mainly because of COVID in the pandemic. But prior to that, I was like, oh, actually, no, I'm just cooking meals out of my dorm room just to make ends meet for the because there's always something that stimulates that.
Yeah.
So from a business perspective, you hit it right on the head, man. It's extremely important to learn all those attributes and know them and understand them well enough. That way, you can translate that to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of my personality is if I get interested in something, I really want to pursue it.
Absolutely.
And I also get interested in a lot of things, and it can be it can hold you back if you're into too many things. But with my
Right.
career so far, I've been in restaurant management, and then once COVID hit, I really went into kind of more food and tech, and now
Yeah.
kind of you know, food manufacturing, research and development type role, and I
Right.
really enjoy it. And I think it's like important. I don't know. I think for me, for the longest time, all I wanted to do was own a restaurant. And right now, at this point in my career, I really don't know what I want to do. I mean, like
Right.
long as like I want to be managing in food business in some way. But I'm at
Sure.
a point right now where I'm just tasting kind of all these different things, and obviously the food media stuff. But it seems like you kind of have that same curiosity where yes, you're with Marriott, you're in a position where you're obviously managing and you're doing well. But it's like going on trips to Italy, staying curious. How does like just talk to me about like your curiosity and kind of how that is? Because for me, it's like when I get into something, I really like I need to dive into it. Are you the same way?
Certainly. Absolutely. I think, the curiosity has to stay. It has to stay. And it doesn't just have to stay, it has to evolve. It has to get better, right?
Hmm.
And because as a chef in particular, right, I mean, as well as anybody, there's thousands of cuisines,
Hmm.
millions of ingredients. I don't think any chef in their right mind should ever limit themselves to just one attribute, because there's always something that you can evolve. And with fusion, you can do that. So creating and curating, I should say, a creative and curious mind is essential to what we do. Whether you're on the line or you're a chef, or even in business management, there's always different practices that you can do. You can adopt different things on how you can go about and do different things like that. So, like for me, staying curious has always been, very important. I think what I'm getting into now is more nutrition based.
Hmm.
I kind of made a switch into a vegetarian lifestyle,
Nice.
primarily about 2 years ago, and that's focused more so on nutrition and dietetics and how those two coexist, and understanding that and learning that this is an entire world that I wasn't privy of, prior to learning, different culinary techniques and things like that. So again, staying curious, watching movies, shows, reading books, understanding documentaries, speaking to chefs, going to conventions, all of that. It makes you a well-rounded person for one, and
Hmm.
also it brings you a step up in the game. And your candidacy it skyrockets. It makes you more attractive in all different facets. Like someone who's more one dimensional can only stay in that arena for so long. We're starting to see that. Where you have to learn different skill sets at a rapid rate in order to stay above and
Yeah.
and try to maintain different things. So for me, yeah, man, oh my gosh, curiosity. I never want to landlock myself, if you will, into a certain type of cuisine or management style. Is always you can always better your best, because practice makes progression.
Hmm.
There is never a state of perfection. You can always get better. You can always improve. I think that's the main ethos, especially with Marriott and also with me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would definitely agree with that sentiment and just being able to adapt. The job right now, yeah, the job market obviously it's a worker's world right now, just due to
Sure.
how much there is like open wise and even kind of what you can learn and what you can apply yourself to. But maybe in 5 to 10 years, like I don't know. I kind of said this in a podcast about a year ago. It might not be good enough to just be able to like cook. Like
Cook.
you see a
Right.
lot of workers now like getting cross trained on whether it's
Right.
like looking at reservation systems or whatnot. And it's not like it's going to be like you need a degree or anything, but I've seen a lot of people get savvy, like especially like line cooks, just getting into Yeah, okay, they're cooking, but they're also learning, what a little bit of front of house, and they're able to move and adapt
Right.
because who knows what the next 5 to 10 years is gonna bring in food.
For sure.
So it's definitely interesting. I wanna talk about the ACF a little bit,
Certainly.
because obviously you're a part of the ACF, and it's interesting for me because the ACF obviously has a very important role in the industry. But how, what does the ACF do to kind of appeal to the next generation? Because I feel like when I think of the ACF, I think of kind of like the older guard or the older
Right.
establishment. How do you see
Certainly.
the ACF evolving to kind of meet in with this new generation of chefs?
Absolutely. I think what the ACF has done, especially in the last 2 years, is directly that, cater to the younger generation for in most part because it thoroughly believes in that the mentorship, right? That's one of the main core characteristics of the ACF is to pass down what they've learned onto us. Like you said, that older guard, I should say,
Hmm.
is full of knowledge, full of perspective, full of technique, and they understand that a shift has to be made. A dynamic shift has to
Hmm.
be made. And there's younger chefs, like myself, like yourself, and different people that really care about this trade and want to see it progress and want to see it thrive and not just survive. So what the ACF is doing in a large part is appealing to more so school systems. They believe heavily in coexisting with ProStart and DECA and different teams like that, or
Hmm.
organizations like that, and teaming up and starting at a fundamental level and introducing it and believing in apprenticeship. And then from there, it's like they have like different tiers, right? So you're in high school, you learn the fundamentals, right?
Hmm.
You have an opportunity for certification, so certification is huge as well. And then, out of high school, whether you go straight into college or you want to do a trade, apprenticeship, abroad, whatever the case may be, they're also heavy influence in that, just in terms of staying abreast in what you're doing. What resources do you need? So in large part, it's like a 50-50, to be honest with you. It takes the younger chef, the younger generation, the initiative and the innovation to reach out, right? And to understand that connections just don't happen from one side. It needs both, but there has to
Hmm.
be forceful emphasis beginning, and then also from a stance from the ACF, they have to be able to be readily available and have the resources and to appeal to the younger generation. I think that's what they're doing, more than anything. And the new president of the ACF, Chef Kimberly Brock Brown, her and I, sorry, she has just taken heed of this and has put in so many different innovations and implementations into developing systems for the younger generation to be more abreast. So the ACF, man, and just in large part has been very integral in my growth.
Awesome. No, it's good to hear, and I hope to see more of a growth in kind of younger talent in the ACF because I think like you said, like I said, like I think a lot of people when they think of the ACF, it's kind of like, oh, you have to be at a certain level,
Right.
in age and in status, a chef, but
For sure.
it could be something where a cook, like you said, there's tiers and like moving up. So I think
Exactly.
I think it's important. So we kind of talked about your career. We talked about kind of thoughts on the industry. And so, kind of, what are your thoughts over the next few years? Obviously, the last year and a half have been kind of crazy with COVID and everything else going on. How were you during that time? How did you kind of adapt and kind of did COVID change? We're still obviously in a pandemic, but
Sure.
coming out of the last year and a half, how we've adapted, has it kind of changed your goals? Has it changed your viewpoints on the industry? What's been going on with you over the last year and a half?
Certainly. I shouldn't say it changed. I should say it strengthened. My viewpoint and perspective wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
Actually during the pandemic, I started my own business and I launched my own YouTube culinary series, Beyond the Plate.
Yep.
And basically, it's just a culinary series where I just teach novice chefs, young chefs, home cooks, if you will, how to make different things, so such as like a vinaigrette or a
Hmm.
mayonnaise, just small things like that. Things that people outside of the ordinary culinary industry will probably buy at a grocery store. So having the ability to say like, hey, if you have a couple lemons, some oil, and Dijon mustard, let's make a vinaigrette, things like that, and some salt and pepper, household, staple ingredients.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it will probably last longer, taste better, things like that, and be
Yep.
more overall nutritious for you. So that was something that I didn't think that I would get into at that start, but the pandemic, I think offered a lot of people a different perspective and a different, outlook on life wholeheartedly, especially from our industry. And to be honest with you, Ray, I think it uncovered a lot of hidden, I should say hidden, but low key kind of factors that our industry has kind of downplayed in a while,
Yeah.
such as work-life balance and offering better pay and benefits and things like that. Of course, I don't own a business or run a business on
Hmm.
a on that magnitude, so I can't speak for what that looks like on paper. But I can say that a lot of my colleagues, they have shifted out of this and have done different things, like, and have tapped into different industries and networks just because of they want something different. They want something new, and these are people that have, for the latter part of their life, dedicated a lot of it to culinary arts. So for me, the like I said, strengthened my knowledge, strengthened my core perspective just on a lot of things. I was able to, like I said, launch my business, and just develop, the LLC, and just strengthen.
Yeah.
This all happened after I was on Food Network, and then I was like, man, like, we're gonna have a great time, and then boom, boom, right when it happened, COVID happened. So it was a blessing in disguise, right? To be honest with you, and I don't mean that to say arrogantly,
Hmm.
it was just truly an opportunity to slow down and recalibrate my thinking, to understand that there are different avenues, and to say, Ashton, where do you want to go? So I'm in the same boat, man. There's so many different avenues and things to do. Why stifle myself just into one thing? There's traveling is one curiosity, food and beverage, management, technology. There's so many different things. So during that time, it was really an opportunity for growth. It really was, and to strengthen it and to reach out. I have a great network of chefs here in the Cleveland area, and working with them and collaborating with them has been amazing.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So now would be kind of the time before we, as we start to wrap things up. You mentioned Beyond the Plate. Where can people find you online? Where can people find you on social media?
Certainly. So I'm on pretty much all platforms except Twitter. My main profile is Ashton Garrett, and then if you go on YouTube, you can look up Beyond the Plate or Ashton M Garrett, and it'll go straight into my YouTube channel. I'm also have a website, www.chefashton.com, where you can just find everything right there. So that's easier. But yeah, if you want to follow me, I follow back. Don't worry about that, and we can have a conversation, talk about food, life, whatever the case is, and I love to always connect. I think that's the gateway to the future, is connections, and how we can build networks, and how we can all bring something to the table. And because that's the most essential part, is bringing something to the table, regardless of what color or race, ethnicity. Let's just all let's cook, and that's my mantra, is let's cook.
Awesome. I love it. Let's cook. It's a good
Yes, sir.
mantra to live by.
Always, man. Let's cook. Always.
Now that you've been on the show, you're obviously speaking to the Line Cook Nation, the audience that listens to the show, that follows along on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. A group of chefs, cooks, people, and food that just want to learn and grow with each other. So now that you've been on the show and you're speaking to this audience, what does that mean to you?
It's a great experience, and it always is. Speaking power, right? Speaking power, whatever it is, and speaking your truth. I'm here because of my experiences. I'm here because of the people that have worked tremendously hard to put me in this position, and it would be, I shouldn't necessarily say vindicative, but it would be, I would be foolish, to not try to give my best effort, on an everyday basis, to help them. So having opportunities like this, right, where you put in place to speak to a larger audience, and to encapsulate so many other people, and to help bring them in, and knowledge. And what this is all knowledge, and knowledge and perspective, and knowledge is power. Excuse me, knowledge has the potential to become power. It's truly what somebody on the other end receiving this decides to do with it, and vice versa. Things that I've learned from you today, I would like to implement in my everyday structure, because of this exchange. And that's really so beautiful. So to have a podcast, and to have a position of, narrative, like what you do, from a journalistic standpoint, is imperative. So I applaud you for what you're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. That means a lot. I mean, that's the best part about this job, is getting to meet new people. Or I should say
Absolutely.
job. Best part about this side, whatever it is.
Right. Sure. Right.
um, you know,
Opportunity. We'll just say that. Yep.
opportunity. Yeah, getting to meet new people, getting to talk, and like you said, getting to kind of just record and yeah, no, it's definitely a cool thing. But yeah, well, thank you for coming on the show, and just really looking forward to what your career has in store, and looking forward to seeing you grow.
Right. It's a pleasure. And whenever you're in the New York area, I don't know, are you based in New York?
So right now I'm in Maryland. I do
Okay.
visit New York once in a while. So
Okay, so whenever you're in New York, I visit there probably pretty frequently, so we can definitely get together,
oh
and
yeah,
talk more. So it's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much, Ray, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
awesome.